All right. Hello there, health coaches. You know what? I took a scroll through my Instagram this morning. And since I follow so many of you, I can see what you're putting out there. And I saw a lot of quotes getting shared, some great quotes. I saw a lot of quotes. I saw lists like 10 plant-based sources of protein, stuff like that. I saw recipes. And I want to say, I am so glad that you're publishing content and you're making yourself visible. That's amazing. Like, this is really good stuff. And I'm only seeing your Instagram, by the way. Then I know there are many of you who are blogging, who are podcasting, like Vicky, shout out to Vicky, who recently restarted her fabulous AF and over 50 podcast.
Oh, that's a great name.
It's great. I'm so proud of Vicky. She followed our free podcast quick start guide, by the way, to do that. And you can do the same. It's at healthcoachpower.com/podcast guide. But today's show is not about podcasting or blogging per se, or posting on Instagram. It is the larger overarching question of, what should I write about? What on earth do I have to share? What sort of content can I actually come up with, and should we spend our time on? And to answer that question, my friend Jana O is with us today. Jana is a content strategist and one of the smartest, most pulled together people I know in the online space. So Jana, thanks for being here. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. That's so sweet. Hi, everybody. I'm Jana. Such a nice introduction. And like Michelle said, I'm a content strategist. I also teach people how to do Pinterest. I did that for about 8 years. And these days I am really focusing on helping health and wellness and self-improvement coaches to create content that converts to clients. So yeah, that's who I am. And I'm excited to talk about this today. It's my favorite topic.
And you have so much to say about it. So I'm very much
Always.
looking forward to this conversation, because everything that like Jana and I were talking, behind the scenes the other day, and everything that you were saying, when I really thought about it and I went onto Instagram, like I said, I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we're doing. This is exactly the pitfalls that we're falling into. So I know you see what I see, which is
Yeah.
lots of health coaches sharing quotes, sharing listicles, things like that.
Right.
What's your take?
Yeah, like you said, it's so great to be showing up and getting out there and making yourself visible. But the next step beyond that, once you have kind of gotten in the rhythm and you're showing up, maybe a couple times a week or whatever your cadence is to really think about maybe the difference between the things that you're posting now, like the nutrients in the sweet potato and the
Yeah.
and the Brene Brown quotes and whatnot. Thinking about that type of thing versus, are these really the things that my ideal client needs to hear and learn and understand more deeply to actually be ready to buy, to be ready to hire me or book that call or fill out that application to work with me, whatever that next step that you have in your process is, right, to get them as a client. And I think when we're really thinking hard about it, if we really are honest with ourselves, we can all agree that it's really not the, nutrients in the sweet potato or the Brene Brown quotes that are going to move people into action. And so it's a little bit of tough love, I guess, I have for your audience today, Michelle, to say that if that's you, great. I'm so glad that you're showing up. But now it's time to think about like maybe just showing up and getting visible, although that is an accomplishment, in itself. Maybe that's not enough to really get you the signups, the discovery calls, the clients that you want, right, to fill your client roster. So yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of that out there. I'm glad people are doing it, but you need more than that in 2024 to sign clients. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
overarching message here. Yeah.
So let's keep that in mind. We're not just sitting around putting out content, whether it's on a blog or a podcast or whatever, for fun. We're not just content creators. We're not just trying to get traffic. We're coaches. We're
Right.
trying to see that conversion from somebody who's reading our stuff or watching our stuff, and then they take that next step and they become a paying client. And that's where
Yes.
smarter content is going to
Yep.
ensure that you're not wasting your time. And I want to let you guys know that Jana and I are actually holding a follow-up training. It is entirely free, follow-up training to today's episode. And that's where we're going to share more about a content system to establish yourself as an expert in the health space, even if you're just starting out. This is really valuable stuff. And I think we all need this. So it's completely free to join us. I want you to go to healthcoachpower.com/expert, because at the end of that training, you're going to know exactly what it takes to start feeling like an expert. And, Jana, like imposter
Mhm.
syndrome is a really big thing for our coaches. Like you must see that with
Yeah.
those that you work with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the ironic thing, I think, when I look at my students and my clients, in the beginning, when they're posting those quotes, posting those recipes and whatnot, is that they're such incredibly smart humans and they have such rich life experience and work experience. So many of them are coming out of backgrounds where they worked with people and got amazing results for people. They know so much about their space, but they don't necessarily understand what it takes to take that and turn it into their marketing content. They almost think of those two things as separate, right? Like this is your expertise over here and this is your marketing content. Now, what in the world should the marketing content be? And so one of the concepts that I like to try to help people think about when they're thinking about how to create content that positions you as an expert, not just content that shows other people's brilliance, right? Like quotes, for example, is to think about this almost like a Venn diagram, right? Those two overlapping circles. One circle represents all the amazing experience and knowledge that you have, including the sweet potatoes and things like that. But also the mindset shifts people need to make in order to get the results with you and whatnot, all the things you've seen over the years of experience that you have. And then the other circle represents the things that your audience actually needs to, as I mentioned earlier, hear, learn, and understand more deeply to be ready to hire you. And to think about really finding that sweet spot in the middle of the Venn diagram, the part where the circles overlap, to think about what content you should be creating. And we're going to be getting into this a lot more in the training that we're doing that you just mentioned. But instead of just thinking about the tips and the tricks, we need to also be thinking about what I like to think of as like belief shifting. So what do they think is going on now that's keeping them from getting to where they want to get to, right? And what do you know about that that is true? And what do you know about that that maybe they're thinking that isn't true? So belief shifting, bringing people from thinking one thing to thinking, realizing, something else. Those are the kinds of things people need to learn and hear and understand more deeply as an example. Um, so
Can we
yeah, it's
do some
really all
examples
about,
of that, by the way? Because I think that
Mhm.
sounds good, but then it's like, wait, what? How do I translate that to like what I'm actually doing in my business?
Yeah,
When you
yeah,
just said like, what is someone? You could tell me if I'm getting this right. What
yeah,
does someone need to hear in order or understand in order to want to hire you as a health coach? Like one thing that came
right.
to mind for me was when we have women with autoimmune disease,
Hmm.
and they think of it in terms of it's just bad luck or it's
Yeah,
just genetics.
genetics, right?
There's
Uh-huh.
nothing I can do. Maybe their doctor even told them that there's nothing you
Hmm.
can do. There is no cure. So that's what they're
Yep.
living with. So
Hmm.
they would need to hear and understand that no, there is so much you can do.
Right,
And
right,
maybe there's no cure per se, but we can sure as heck get rid of like
right.
so many of those symptoms.
Right. And we have to remember too that even though we already are well aware of that, a lot of the people in our audiences are really still so many steps behind us that they may still be thinking that this is just genetics and there's not much that I can do about it, for an example. So that's a great example, exactly. And so the idea is to kind of mix that in with some of the other types of things that are more the how-tos and the tips and the tricks. Some things show your expertise, and some things are more about moving people kind of along in on a conversion kind of track, if you will, getting them closer to the point where they're ready to make that to take that action and to sign up with you, or to book that call with you. So yeah, that's a great example.
Can we do an example of what you meant by mindset shifts?
Yeah, for sure. So for example, let me I'm drawing a blank. Sorry.
Just put you
Got
on the spot.
no,
So
it's
it's
all right. I've got a lot
okay.
going on today too, so that's part of it. Um, yeah, so let's think about, for example, like let's say you are a coach that specializes in, I'm for some reason I know you've got a lot of obviously the health and wellness coaches, but I'm thinking about the dating coaches. Sometimes people who are dating coaches realize that their audience are coming up against, they're thinking that it's more about the external things and finding that person versus doing the work to be ready to find that person, right? And so talking a little bit about that, but also meeting people where they're at is really the key to it, is understanding where they are now, acknowledging for them that you understand why they're there, what they've experienced before or read before or heard before, that is creating that belief, but then showing them, something new and explaining and backing up the reason why what they think is the problem isn't really the problem, for example, and then
Mm.
transitioning into how you help solve that problem. So that would be an example as well of like a more of a belief shifting. You could think of it as mindset shifting too, but like that belief shifting
That makes a
kind of
lot of
content
sense.
that we need in addition to the tips and the tricks and the how-tos to really help people see us as the expert and be ready to hire us, right? Yeah.
So that like made my brain go, oh, it's like when we have a health coaching client, or no, they're not a client yet, but there's somebody who, has a
In your
problem with their
audience.
health and they're going, well, I don't like healthy food. I don't like stuff like that. Like I
Mm.
could never get healthy because, or I don't like to exercise. Like they just
Hmm.
have that. I'm not a
That it's
person who does
unpleasant. Hmm.
this, right? And so this would be us creating content that would help them go, oh, well, that's true. I do like, apples, and an apple is produce, and
Yeah.
maybe I do like produce.
Right. Yeah. And then also there's something about the identity shifting as well, right? I don't think
Yeah.
of myself as someone who likes healthy things, but actually when I start looking at the actual facts of the circumstances, like for example, I do like apples, it can help shift that identity, right? So that's also the type of content you can be thinking about creating. Yeah.
Ooh, all right. So for those of you that are here live with us, tell us in the chat, like, what are some of those beliefs that you see people getting stuck on? I could never because I'm not
Hmm.
that kind of person. It's too hard. I don't have time, right? We hear
Yep.
all of these as health coaches. So I'm curious what that's bringing up for everybody who's watching, because this is the stuff we hear every day. So if you think about it that way, it should be pretty easy to come up with our content. Can we just pull it from like the conversations that we have?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes people are a little worried about being a naysayer or being polarizing in some ways. But I also think that you need to find some balance and be willing to state those opinions that you have that might go against the grain, right? And when we really start to think about what things do I believe that are different from what other people believe, or what are the things what are the parts of the approaches that I take with people when I'm working with them that are different from what others do, that's again where our content can start to position us as different than all the other people who are in our space, or all the other people that our ideal clients might be thinking about learning from, or and maybe not even just hiring in this moment, but learning from. So those things also differentiate us, which is really important because none of us want to feel like, I'm just one in a you know, bunch of people in a space that are all kind of saying the same thing, look like I'm doing the same thing. We all want to stand out, right? For the things that are different about us. So your content can help you do that too. But again, it's hard for you to position yourself as different or the right choice for someone if you're not sharing your own thought leadership ideas, if you're only sharing the things that are, more of those generic tips and tricks and quotes and recipes and such, right? So bringing
I
it
think
kind of back
those
to that
words,
concept.
when you
Yeah.
said thought leadership,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I felt like a thought leader when I
Yeah.
started my health coaching business, and I would pretty much bet my life savings that nobody, who's
Uh,
listening right now necessarily thinks of themselves as a thought leader. Can you
yeah.
normalize that, or kind of break down like what you mean by that?
Well, I think it's like, sorry, my nose is running. I think it's like the difference between expertise and authority, right? In the space. Those two words are, you hear them used in similar contexts, but they're very different in the sense that you could be an expert and have a lot of really important information in your brain and be able to share it with people in the moment when they need it, who are your clients already, right? Um, but taking that expertise and turning it into content now gives you this authority online where people actually see you and they see your content and they think not just, oh, she knows her stuff, but also, well, not maybe not just like, she knows her stuff, but also it's about that differentiation, I think, in the market as well. Um, So
And
being
also
an
that like this
authority,
person knows their stuff, but they can help me. I know they can help me.
yeah, yep, that's such an important part of the puzzle, right? So I think that authority and thought leader are similar in that way. You may not think of yourself as a thought leader now, but if you start mixing into your content your own opinions, your own ideas, and start showing up more as an authority instead of just having your expertise kind of like locked up in your brain, um, that's where you are, believe it or not, kind of stepping into that role of thought leader or authority in your particular niche or space. And again, I think that's so important for people for that credibility that you really need in order for people to take that next step and be ready to sign up to have you as their guide in some kind of change that they want to make. So,
I thought maybe we could do some like makeovers of, content makeover. So, like how could we make it better, right? Because
yeah,
these like real life examples just drive the point home so much. So like you
yeah.
kept, you've mentioned sweet potatoes a bunch of times.
I
So
don't know why I
maybe
just have sweet potatoes in my head today.
I have absolutely seen that, right? And I've probably
Yeah,
even written that in my
yeah.
health coaching career. So, we can all see it now. It's like 8 reasons to eat sweet potatoes or
Hmm.
whatever, the
Right.
benefits of sweet potatoes. And it's
Yep.
like, got this vitamin, got that vitamin, and fiber, and whatever, this, that, and the other. When you were talking about like being polarizing or like inserting
Hmm.
your opinion, it got
Yep.
me thinking like that for me was always the easiest way to make facts interesting to read, was to
Hmm.
not just relay the facts, but talk about like how I thought about it. Like I always thought sweet potatoes were disgusting. I only
Yep.
ever ate them, on Thanksgiving, somebody would mix them with marshmallows. And, like you can share like some
Hmm.
sort of like humanity along with the facts.
Hmm. I like that idea.
So interesting, but I'm not sure that's exactly like an opinion. Like where else could we go with sweet potatoes where it starts to work harder for us in terms of converting clients?
Yeah, I think when you start to think about, for example, substituting sweet potatoes for other types of um, alternatives, like a white potato or whatnot, or that, that could be something not just as a tip, but like talking about why you would do that and how it sort of like how that, sorry, how that like if you have particular opinions, I'm trying to think how to make a sweet potato spicy other than just dumping spice on it.
It's
Maybe
a
you
tough
have
one.
maybe you have an opinion about sweet potatoes. It's actually different than what other people think. Maybe you think that sweet potatoes actually, aren't that great. And, there's other vegetables or other things that are similar or that you can sub in for recipes that actually have a higher, like more of the nutrients that your particular ideal client needs in your particular niche. It's all about kind of coming back to what your particular like specialization is, for example. So that might be an example, having a different opinion about sweet potatoes.
Like
I
our
don't want
keto
to,
coaches, right? Our keto coaches are
yeah,
going to be
right,
like, don't eat sweet potatoes. It's way too many carbs. Like we're not doing that. Eat more
right,
meat, whatever, like,
right.
and that's where people start to pay attention, right? Because it's like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah, a better example might be cauliflower now that I think about it. Right? When people hear about like, oh, cauliflower steaks, one particular health coach might think cauliflower steaks are great, but another one might say, no, like actually, for autoimmune, you really need to be eating a real steak. So let's talk about how you can do that in a healthful way. So
Oh
that
my
might be
God, I
another,
always see that on the internet
a
too, like
better,
substitute a cauliflower steak. And I'm like, where's the protein? Where's the
how is a
protein?
cauliflower a steak? Yeah. So I think it's a lot easier to think about. Yeah, I don't want to vilify the sweet potatoes, but I think that would be a good example. The cauliflower steak. Actually, cauliflower steak isn't the right thing for this particular set of people that I work that I personally help. That would be a great example.
Right. Why I don't recommend this for my clients. That might be an easy formula to use when you want to just share information,
Mhm.
like couching it within like why I do recommend this for my clients or why I don't talk to my clients about this or whatever, because that is then putting into the context of, your specific work. And also
Mhm.
it underlines the fact that you work with clients and then the reader's like, oh, and I could be one of those clients.
Mhm.
We got to keep mentioning that thing. All right. What about this
Yep.
one? This is like, I love to poke fun at myself because, you live and you learn. And I've been a health coach for so many years now that there's a lot to make fun of. But I remember at one point in my health coaching career, I created a lot of content around healthy holiday recipes.
Mm.
And I'm going to tell you, people loved, I mean, on the surface, it was very successful. They all
Mhm.
wanted my healthy holiday recipes. Who wouldn't want that? But let me tell you how many clients I got from it.
Yeah,
Big fat zero on that one. So I'm thinking like, gosh, like how maybe what I needed people needed to hear was not just like here's a recipe, but maybe it's like, you don't actually have to gain 10 pounds during the holidays every year. Maybe they
right.
needed to hear that.
Maybe, yeah. Or even talking about some of this is a great, where the mindset comes in, talking about how, the social pressures that happen when you go places and you bring, or other people have brought their favorite recipes. Um, and people really want you to try something that you personally know is not going to be good for you, for example, right? So digging into the specifics of situations like that and thinking, not just how can I show up with my favorite healthy recipes, but how can I help people with the actual problems that they experience at this time of the year when it comes to all of this that swirls around, the drama around what we're eating and what we're not eating and what we're bringing and what we're not bringing. So those are the kinds of things that are more, digging into those like specifics. And when you create content around something like that, you're going to be one of, not many people that have that kind of content in their feed. Whereas everybody has, their favorite healthy holiday recipes in their feed at that time of the year. And it kind of becomes like almost like white noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about how you can be different, again, how you can change people's, thinking around things, how you can get more granular around the actual problems that you're solving, right? I mean, one solution is to have a healthy recipe in your back pocket to bring, but there are all kinds of other problems that people are experiencing around the holidays when it comes to food. And if you can help with those because you have some expertise, not just around how to prepare, a healthy meal, but also around some of those mindset challenges, that brings a lot of value to people in a different way and it hits differently.
And
Yeah.
certainly depending who you're writing for, right? Because I'm just sitting here thinking, gosh, well,
Yeah.
I was just sharing my recipes out to the whole wide world. I don't know what I thought that was going to get me. What if I
Yeah.
specifically was like that your children, I think at the time I was really working with moms who had little kids.
Mm.
So like maybe more that like for your picky eaters or if you're working with, autoimmunity. Actually, I remember having a client who had autoimmune disease and talking about how at Thanksgiving she was going to not have the white potatoes. She was actually going to have the sweet potatoes and she was not going to have, we kind of went through all the things that were typical on the menu that would be triggering for her and helped her come up with alternatives. So it's not just like, because as we know, what's healthy for one person is not necessarily healthy for another person.
Yeah.
So knowing exactly like who
Right.
you're talking to, like the content can become so much more tailored and useful.
Absolutely. Yep. Helps you get granular. Otherwise, it's difficult to get granular if you don't know who you're talking to and what their actual problems are and what their goals are.
And you know
So
what it sounds like? It just
totally.
sounds like blah, 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 generic. I've heard it a million times and
Yeah,
people click away.
exactly. Exactly. They keep scrolling. It's not the kind of thing that gets people taking notice or making moves. So, yep.
So you have a system that actually helps us develop like key pieces of content.
Mm.
And that's what we're going to be talking more about in our training coming up later this month. Do you want to talk a little bit about that now and why everyone should go hurry and sign up for that training? By the way, you guys, again, it's healthcoachpower.com/expert.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think it's going to be really helpful for anyone who's feeling like, yeah, they're right. I really am posting a lot of things that are a little on the generic side, a lot of those tips, recipes, quotes from other people. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to talk a little bit about what that system is and how we start finding the middle of that Venn diagram that we talked about a little earlier today. So not just about your expertise, but also thinking about what are the things that people need to um, learn and hear and understand more deeply as they're getting ready to buy from me or hire me, right? So we're going to talk about the specific types of content that help you get paying clients, as opposed to the kind of content like you were kind of getting at, Michelle, earlier, where people are like, great recipe or thumbs up, I like it, but it's not really moving the needle in terms of actually bringing them closer, to hiring you, right? We're also going to talk on that day about why, when you create content this way and you dig deeper, you don't actually need tons of content. You only need a little bit of content if it's more dialed in, if it's the right content. And so we didn't really talk about that today, but it's definitely a big part of having a system like this, is making it so that you don't have to create, 1,042 different things before something hits, because you're much more specific about knowing what things are actually going to move people along and get people ready to buy. So we'll talk about that. And basically just like getting bigger results with your content in less time, because you're being more specific and because you're not just, again, sharing those tips and tricks and how-tos. So it's going to be a great training. And I hope some of the folks who are listening will come and join us for it.
And I think I'm just going to be like palm to forehead during the part where, like you just said, that you don't need to create that much content, because you were talking to a woman who has been producing this podcast every single week for years and years and years and years. We have hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and you're going to tell me like I only need 10 or something, and then I'm just going to die right here on my floor. But you're right.
Well,
Like
I
you
don't know.
can like
Mhm.
create, and it kind of goes nowhere. I mean, I'd like to think that mine has gone somewhere, but if you're smarter, if I could rewind time way back to when I was developing healthy holiday recipes for no reason, you can save yourself a lot of energy instead of doing more and more and more, doing less and doing it
Yep.
better.
Yep. Absolutely. Agree.
We like that.
We do. We do.
We
More
love
clients,
that.
less content, less time. Sign me up.
All right. So today we talked a little bit, I mentioned social media, we mentioned blogging, we mentioned podcasting. I don't think I even
Mhm.
mentioned, but another form of content would be like, do we say vlogging? Is that even a word anymore?
Yeah, I think most people, yeah, know what that is. I always think of, like, I say having a YouTube channel, and generally that's where people are going to do a vlog, if they have a vlog, although there are other platforms. So, but yeah, creating long form video content of some kind. Mhm.
Right. So we've mentioned all these different places that you might be creating content, where it might live, or maybe
Mhm.
you have content like I do, lives in a whole bunch of those places at once. Oh my God. So actually next week, Jenny, you're going to come back on the show and we're going to talk about those different platforms, because I know some of our coaches are already on, maybe social media, but nothing else. Or maybe
Mhm.
we have coaches who aren't doing any of this yet. And they're like, I need to be creating content, but
Yep.
we'll talk kind of about like which of these platforms is right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and
Absolutely. And
when
kind
you're
of,
working with clients, do you find that there's one that's more popular than the others, or like what seems to be
yeah.
winning in terms of
Yeah.
popularity?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's like your platform mix, basically. So just a little bit of a sneak peek, I would say that most of my clients and students, when they think about where they want to create their long form content, their headquarters or their source content is sometimes what I call it, because when you create
Mm,
long form content, it can inform all the other pieces and make it a heck of a lot easier to create the other pieces of content. Most of them like a blog. A lot of people like a blog, and I do have some students who like podcasting as well, but most of them are blogging.
that is fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
blogging's been around forever now. I thought everyone had kind of moved on from that, but it's still going
Mm.
strong.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's so many benefits of having a blog. And again, I don't want to get too much into what we're going to talk about next week, but it's also important to remember that if you're a health coach and you have a blog, you're not a blogger. You're a health coach with a blog.
Aha, a health
And
coach
there is a
with a
difference, and
blog.
we'll talk about that next week.
So good. And the reason we're doing this today to kind of whet your appetite next week, so you can think about a platform that makes sense for you for your source content, so that by the time we all get together for our training later this month, how to establish yourself as a health expert, you will better understand like where you're starting from,
Yeah.
like how you can start to implement this right away. So we're looking forward to that. If you haven't already, head over to healthcoachpower.com/expert to get signed up for free. Jen, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
We'll see you next week.
Okay.
Bye.